nerds, and welcome back to Cinematic Sarcastic, a podcast that talks all things movies and television. I'm Natalie, and I'm your host. On today's episode, we are going to talk about 1923. This is the new installment in Taylor Sheridan's spin-off of Yellowstone stuff. So I think I mentioned in a couple of previous episodes, but for anyone who hasn't listened to like every single episode that I put out, I was not a fan of 1883, and I gather that I will be the only person who, just like Wednesday, does not like 1923. Now, hear me out. I think that the reason that I don't enjoy these so much is because I am a pretty big fan of historical and period drama already. And for me, Taylor Sheridan's historical pieces or period pieces are they're just not authentic enough for me. They're very clean and very crisp and very Hollywood-like, which is not the kind of period television series or whatever that I enjoy. Now, with 1923, I will say I went into it with extremely high expectations because we weren't talking about, Faith Hill acting in this one. We were talking about Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren, and there are quite a few other larger named actors in 1923 that for me, I was like, this show better bring it, or I am not going to like it. And I don't know, the star power in this one just didn't do enough for me to counteract the dialogue, the script, and kind of some of the sequences. I think there's only one episode out. I've only watched the one episode. I love Harrison Ford and I love Helen Mirren, but it's just not for me. And that's my personal opinion. I know that 1883 did exceptionally well, I think, with general audiences. And I would imagine that being the case, that 1923 is going to do just as well as 1883 did, because I think that they're similar. They're shot in the same way. The script and stuff are very similar to each other. The little girl, the teenage girl from 1883 is also narrating 1923, which killed it right out of the gate for me because I did not enjoy her. So there are just things that I was I knew I'm not going to like this, but I don't know, something about it. It's just the dialogue just feels kind of forced to me. Again, in 1923, the way that Taylor Sheridan just does stuff sort of reminds me of the way that we used to do period stuff. It reminds me of maybe the early Indiana Jones that took place in the same sort of time period, but it's very clean and it's very Hollywood's interpretation of what that time period would have been like, where everyone is just, perfect teeth and perfect hair and all of this stuff, even though they're out rustling cattle 90% of their lives, and things would have been a lot more dirty. And anyway, I think that I am just coming from a place where I like grittier historical dramas or grittier television series if they're set in a period that isn't modern day. And I will have to say, even though I hate saying this because Yellowstone is one of my favorite television series, season 5, I think we're on season 5 now, has not really been that great. I question the ability of Yellowstone to have real long-lasting staying power in the way that maybe something like The Walking Dead has gone for 15 seasons. I don't know that Yellowstone can do that length of time. And I'm not saying that Taylor Sheridan isn't a great writer or director. I think that the early seasons, probably the first 4 of Yellowstone, I genuinely enjoyed, but he's kind of recycling the same story plot points, and then I don't find that there's anything fresh or new coming out of 1923. I think that the biggest difference maybe in 1923 is that it branches out into Africa. So you get to see kind of a different location for this one, which is nice. But for me, it's just not, it's very predictable. I find these all very predictable also. Yellowstone included, sadly, they're pretty predictable. And I think that they're just meant to be kind of a television drama cowboy series. So it's going to be something, I hate to make this comparison. I'm going to hate myself for this later, but it's a bit Days of Our Lives-y, if that makes sense. Or, like daytime talk series, whatever. They kind of remind me of that. So it's pretty much like the shock factor drama stuff that happens in the show, but there isn't necessarily a lot of substance to it. It really is just kind of drama, like TV drama, which is fine. In Yellowstone, I enjoy it. It makes sense in that context. But in 1883 and now in 1923, it's just not my personal cup of tea. But I recognize, as I recognized when I said that I did not enjoy Wednesday, that I am sitting at a table by myself when I say that I'm not that much of a fan of 1923. So I do think that if you enjoyed 1883, and especially if you like Yellowstone and you like the way that Taylor Sheridan writes his shows, then 1923 is going to be no different. I think it's very, very similar stylistic wise. He definitely has a style to his shows for sure. I think it would be pretty easy to pick out something that Taylor Sheridan had written and directed and had a hand in, because he definitely has a style, which I think is fine, because I know that there are a lot of other writers, directors that do have a style. You can kind of recognize it. You know what to look for if you enjoy their work. I think Taylor Sheridan is no different. His shows definitely, follow a pattern, follow an outline. So for me, not a win. I'm sure for a lot of other people, 1923 is going to be great. I think Harrison Ford, of course, who doesn't love looking at Harrison Ford? I enjoy him a lot. I have to say, though, that I have found it a little bit interesting that Harrison Ford is doing a lot of projects nowadays that I would not normally have pictured him doing. I would never have imagined Harrison Ford doing a television series similar to 1923, and here he is. And then I also never thought that there would be a day that I would see Harrison Ford doing Marvel, and yet he's going into a Marvel film. So I don't know what's going on with Harrison Ford, or if he's just deciding to branch into some areas that he typically hasn't been in before, but we shall see kind of what he does and how things are going forward. I know he's doing another Indiana Jones project. So, we've got some good stuff coming out with Harrison Ford for sure. I'm okay with this one not being one that I personally enjoy. So those are my thoughts. I would love to know yours. Subscribe if you want to join the Movie Nerd family, and I hope to see you in the next episode.